We are families, we are caregivers, we are parents to children with disabilities and medical complexities. We are rarely familiar. We get together to learn, to relate, and to laugh a lot while we share each other's unique family experiences of raising the rarest of the rare. Our goal is to unite, inspire, educate, and empower people living a rarely familiar life. And we're so glad you're here.
Hi, welcome to Rarely Familiar. This is Jen, here with my friend Haley. We're going to dig into the realities of raising the rarest of the rare on this podcast. And today, in particular, we're going to get familiar with the sibling experience and really dig into what it's like being a big brother to Julian and Felix from the perspective of Makai and Eli. Today, Trum is not with us. Hi, Haley.
I know. Trum is at home with Sadie. That's why there's three of us, because there's always going to be something crazy going on, and somebody's going to need to skip out.
Absolutely.
It's just the two of us here with your son, Makai, and my stepson, Eli. And I think it's really interesting how all three of us, Jen, you, me, and Trum, how we have very different family dynamics. My family dynamic is my husband, Tim, his two boys, Max and Eli, who are 17 and 16. And then I have Felix, who's 6. And Max and Eli go back and forth to their mom's house every other week. We have them exactly 50% of the time. It's a divorce situation. It's complicated. Max and Eli are quite a bit older than Felix. So it's a totally different dynamic than Trum, who has Sadie, and she's an only child. Yeah. And then Jen, you've got a totally different.
And so I am divorced with 2 boys, and so I share joint custody with my ex-husband, and it's not quite 50-50. The back and forth, both Julian and Makai go together. And so I get that pause, that break. But yeah, our family looks very different with doing the single mom thing when I have both boys.
So Makai is with Julian all the time.
All the time. Yes, all the time, except when he's at school. That's a unique experience. And it's interesting. I was listening to a podcast on my walk the other day about the sibling experience, just to try to get more information and hear about what other stories are out there. And a lot of the podcasts are interviewing and talking to educators, professionals, caregivers, parents. I didn't find one that actually had the sibling speak on their experience. And so I think this is a really unique show today. So before I introduce Makai, though, I want to introduce this concept that I read about and heard about when I was listening, more about siblings and their experience. And it's called the glass child. So glass children.
Oh, okay.
And so have you guys heard of that?
No.
Okay. I hadn't either.
Glass children.
I was like, what's that? So glass children are siblings of a person with a disability.
Oh.
The word glass means people tend to see right through them and focus only on the person with the disability. Glass is also used because the children appear strong, but in reality they are not. So I was struck by that, and it was upsetting to hear that kind of thinking, because I think as a parent with 2 kids, we normally have that experience of, wow, how do we share the love? How do we spread out the support to more than one kid? And then you add in the child with the disability, and that skews it in such a way, or the balance is just very hard to maintain. But then you have the added thought of, gosh, does Makai feel like he's invisible, or that we're seeing through him? And that would be the last thing that I would ever want. I'm really curious to maybe dig into that topic itself. But first, Makai is my almost 16-year-old.
16. Okay, you could
16.
easily pass for 20-something.
he's just shy of 6'3", pretty strong and strapping fellow. He's at a great school in Minneapolis that has a real STEM focus, so that's his area of interest. But he's also a pianist. He is a saxophone player. He is on the math team, and he's on the track team right now. So he's a multifaceted kid. So welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Does it feel really weird to be talking to your mom, like in this formal weird?
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. So you are a big brother, almost 3 years older than Julian. And so you really know nothing else, because you were shy of 3 when he was born. And if you think about how it was when he was little versus how it is now with him just turning 13 last month, can you just talk about, like, how has it changed? What was it like then? What's it like now?
I think it went through 3 stages. When he was really young and very needy, that was relatively under the age of maybe 4.
We're all really needy.
Yeah, well, it's not really much of a difference, and usually the parents handle everything. He's not doing all that much. Mm-hmm. When he got to probably about 4, and then until, I don't know, maybe 12, that was the more challenging time for me, because now he was getting bigger. When he would have either temper tantrums or just worse behavior, it was certainly more noticeable. And that was the time when I was also at an age where it was more challenging to accept that he did these things, and that was just how it's going to be, at least for an amount of time. And then there was when he got to maybe like about a year to a year and a half ago, and I've just noticed him becoming maybe more defiant, but also more subdued a little bit in like the way he reacts to me. He'll listen to me more. He'll interact on a higher level. And I think so. Those were the 3 stages that I've noticed.
That's interesting, because I think of, to think of it as that period. I think of the second stage for you, second period. That's when Julian was probably in the hospital more, although he was in the first stage too. But do you remember going to the hospital? Do you remember a lot of the injuries that he's had, where we would be in a stressful, scary situation?
Only a small bit. It's been a while.
Okay. What do you think is the hardest, the most challenging side to having a brother like Julian?
Certainly when I was younger, I would say it was his behavior and the struggle of dealing with what would happen when he did not get his way and he was upset and everything. Mm-hmm. But now that I've just become more used to it and he's become a little bit more compliant, I'd say the hardest part is maybe recognizing that I don't have a brother that I can interact with in the same way I interact with my friends, and that I probably never will. So that's probably the most challenging part, though I don't think about it all that much, because it's just life goes on, and as it has and will. Yeah, that's what I would say.
I suppose too, this is what you know. This is all. You don't know what it's like to have a brother that's neurotypical or who is developing like you are. So
he knows hard. Other kids, other typical kids at that age, and what they're into and what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I almost feel, just seeing you interact with Julian too, it's almost like at age 15, you almost have to step into more of a father figure role. Mm-hmm. That's what I've just barely, just in interaction with you, see, just he listens to you.
Oh, he really does. Yes.
And it's a really unique relationship that you have with him, and a really important one. But it's not a typical brother relationship.
Right.
It's different.
It isn't. It is at times. It is when the cookie is eaten that Makai wanted, or when something is broken. There's the typical sibling wrestling match going on the ground. But the other side of it is with Makai, I see him just stepping up, and I'm really mindful of not doing parentification, right? Not having him do certain tasks. But as a single mom, sometimes you go, oh gosh, I really need help here, and he is all I have. But Makai, you naturally have just gravitated towards such a mature role of, we're going on an outing, and you put Julian in the car without being asked, and you buckle him in, or back when he was younger in his big fancy seat, or you grab the stroller and put it in, the wheelchair type stroller. And so you like jump in and do these things, and you help me out when we're having all these challenges. So I think it's really beautiful watching you grow and develop into this kind of caregiver. So are there some kind of things, like, I was actually asking 2 girlfriends who are also in our similar situation, and their kids talked about the challenges and the joys. And one of the joys was, gosh, I have this really unique experience. I'm getting a greater depth and perspective on life. And would you say there's some takeaways that are like silver linings to having Julian as a brother?
Yeah, I would agree. I think it builds character whenever you go through some sort of trial or just a harder circumstance than others. I think, like you said, just putting him in the car or whatnot, it's really simple stuff. It just has to be done. So when you become acquainted with the idea that somebody's got to do it, and you might as well. It makes life easier because you're not
for everybody.
You're not, you're not worrying about the small
like,
things or whatnot, and it gives you more space almost to just worry about the other things, or like just not have that mental sort of struggle with, oh, do I really want to do this? This is more work. It's just, you just do it, and that's all there is to it.
But do
you think you were always that way, or do you think
I think it's become more so considering I've grown up with it. When I was younger, it would be more of a challenge for me to see the necessity of me doing the tasks, but I've grown to understand more, especially with split parents, that there is always going to be a little more responsibility, and you can complain about things and have a poor attitude. That doesn't really change your situation. It's better to just live with it.
Very mature perspective.
It's like adapting to your environment.
Do you want to cry a little bit?
That.
I know. Like you're like, I could.
Yeah, I know. I just feel like what a lucky brother Julian has. Really Makai, you couldn't be any better as a big brother. It's been really wonderful watching you evolve and grow and develop into this really kind, empathetic human being. But before we close, because I know we want to jump into talk about Eli, can you just share, so this is an example of what it's like. And yes, we can find the joys and we can find the growth in it, but it's also really hard. Really hard. And I'll just lay the story. We were at a school event. Makai had a big concert. This was maybe a month or two ago. And he had a solo. And it was this really special event, and I went with Julian, and I'm in the audience. Julian had a major, I'm talking on a scale of 1 to 10, a 10 meltdown. And I had to physically get him out of the auditorium during a quiet song. And then Makai had to leave the concert and come out and help his mom manage Julian.
The concert that Makai was in.
Yeah, and he was not on stage yet, but it was like this really intense, trying to subdue him. He was like trying to clear tables. It was this fancy event. Can you just share just like what that experience was like for you? Because I think that is not something that 99% of kids your age right now
that sucks.
are having
you
to
you had to be taken out of your event to play the caregiver.
I missed getting to see him perform, and it's like a really special event. So can you just expand on that a little bit from your perspective? Because from my side, it was just like, whew, tough.
Yeah, I think that for me, it wasn't really a big deal. I've done this before.
Interesting.
It wasn't a problem for me considering I wasn't on stage, so I saw it as she needs help, so I might as well go help her, and then I can get back on stage.
So nobody told you to leave. You saw.
Well, I heard you guys out in the hall because I had come out of the auditorium.
I'm sure you figured too. I'm the only one that can really help her right now. Yeah. Like nobody else understands what's going on. They see a teenage boy having a meltdown, and it helps to have a little support.
Yeah, I'd say so. There's a few reasons. One is, I've just grown accustomed to taking on that extra responsibility. Yeah. So it's not really a problem when I see it. I may be a little upset. It's not like I think of it all that much differently than just a task you got to get done. I also think going through COVID gave me a new perspective on patience and just being disappointed, just having to go on. So many things were canceled, so many upsets and whatnot. Just have to eventually accept that and go on. So it's not really to dwell on the problem doesn't have its positive outcome in that sense.
That's a mature way to think about
it. No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that is really
Did you get to perform that night?
Yeah.
You did? Okay. So in the end, yay.
And the most fascinating thing was a teacher, not even his teacher.
Yeah.
Witnessed what was going on, and she got out her phone and she recorded all of his pieces and some of the songs for the whole band. And so I was able
that you could
to still see it. Aww. And I just thought, what a kind woman. She just recognized that. And I think, we have so many stories. We could dig into this and talk literally for hours, but we don't have the time.
I am super impressed, and I will reiterate that Julian is very lucky to have you.
Yeah, so thank you for sharing your thoughts with us.
Of course.
So, Makai, I think growing up with Julian and the two of you being fairly similar in age, right? I think when people meet you for the first time and realize, okay, there's the two of you, your brothers, something's different. What sort of advice would you give to other siblings, maybe your age, maybe younger, growing up with somebody like that, like how to be in the world and how to have perspective that you have? What advice do you have?
Yeah, I'd say embrace it. Though it's a challenging experience, it's a really unique one and an interesting, not opportunity, but the position we're in is one that not too many have, and it'll change you and it'll make you better, I think. So go about your life with that in mind. You don't have to dwell on the situation, but to, in general, just accept it.
It sounds like you've made the best of the situation that you're in. Truly, really made the best of it.
It's like the idea of surrendering. I'm going to surrender to this. It is what it is, and I will make the best of it.
And find joy in the ways that I can find joy in this experience that I am living.
Absolutely.
It's profound.
Yeah. Well, good. Well,
thank you. All right, so we just spent 15 minutes getting to know Makai and learning a little bit about his experience, and now we're here with Eli.
Hi.
Hello. Hi. Eli is 16 years old. He plays all the instruments. Guitar, bass, piano, sings. Yeah. What else do you play? Drums. That's all the music.
And you go to a music school.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. Very cool.
Yeah. You and Makai are about the same size, right? Like almost 6'4", probably.
I'm
6'3".
not even close to that.
You're not?
I'm like 6'1".
6'1"? Okay, you're still tall.
He's got a couple of inches on me.
Tall.
He's just a little taller. Pretty close.
But you're very similar in age. But I think the two of you have very different experiences growing up with a brother who has a disability. Because Makai, they're very close in age. They're only 2 years apart. But you and Felix are, what were you, 10 when Felix was born?
Yeah, it's exactly a decade apart.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because when he turns 3, you turn 13.
Yep.
Interesting.
And their birthdays are...
a month apart.
Okay. Yep. Do you remember your first birthday after Felix was born? Did we even celebrate?
No, I don't think so. You guys were still in the hospital. And we just didn't do anything.
And that's a big birthday, 10.
Yeah.
The double digits.
Were you turning 10? Yeah.
No, I would have been turning 11.
You were not.
You were turning 11?
Okay. Oh. It's a blur. Let's just say that those first 2 years were a total blur. I don't think I knew my head from my
right
for the first 2 years. After 2 years I started coming up for air and I'm starting to realize, okay, I can live with this. So I can't imagine what you were going through.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what it felt like to you as a 10-year-old to all of a sudden have a little brother.
It's a little weird. Because usually, when you have a kid, you're home in 3 days, 4 days.
Right.
And you guys were there for 2 months.
3 months.
3 months, yeah. So, we would get done with school. And we had a babysitter at this time, I believe, nanny. Mm-hmm. And so we would go to the hospital and have dinner with you guys, and then
you would come to Ronald McDonald House and have dinner every
Ronald
night.
McDonald every
on
night.
the nights that you were with us. Technically with us, because on the nights you were with your mom, you'd obviously be at her house. Yeah, that's an experience, man.
Yeah, but it's pretty nice.
But you got potato bar.
You got good food. Good food. I think that's what helps it. It's a heavy scene. It's just weird to go home from school and then immediately
go to the hospital.
In a hospital, which school is it's a weird environment. Mm-hmm. It's just dull and dusk, and then you go into a hospital, which is just sad. So it's just a long, long day. But it's how the cookie crumbles.
It's the cards we were dealt. Yes, those first 3 months were very different for you than any other experience of your parents having another kid that would just be there with you.
Yeah.
I remember telling you guys that you were lucky because Felix didn't cry.
Yeah.
So when we did eventually bring him home, Felix didn't cry at all. I was like, you guys have it made. I could have a screaming kid.
Yeah.
Pros and cons.
He was very quiet. It was just the beeping.
Yeah.
But fast forward a few years, getting used to having Felix around, being a family of 5 versus 4.
Yeah.
After we brought him home and settled into the new normal, what did that feel like to you?
It was just like, it feels weird. It's like more things around you than what you're used to. It's the same thing with adding or like having another kid in general after not having that, because it used to just be Max and I, but now it's 3 of us.
Do you have to share your time?
So, yeah,
right?
Share your time, share everything.
Do you think Dad and I were like, do you think you got a lot less time?
Certainly, yeah, 100%.
How did that make you feel?
I wasn't very affected by it, but I can see that, yeah, there probably is for other people. There could be, for sure, negative effects of that, because there's just not enough time to be splitting that between someone who needs just a lot more attention and care compared to 2 people who don't need as much.
Did you find your outings changed and the activities that you did as a family, like the stuff you did with your dad and brother before, now with Felix?
Yeah.
That it really changed in a big way?
Yeah, it was like we have to find activities that we can do that all of us can do or only some of us can do, because someone has to watch Felix while we're out. So we have to it's like you find new activities that can work for everyone, and like times for those activities that can work for everyone, rather than going out really late and doing a thing really late in the evening. You have to kind of plan for having someone who can't do that as well.
Tell me ways in which you feel like your life maybe is more challenging with Felix around.
Scheduling is probably one of the biggest ones, if we're just being honest, because there's not as much time for people to be scheduled with. So like someone has to watch Felix, and then if we have to go do a thing, then we can't necessarily do it because there isn't someone to watch Felix. But I think,
and it's hard to get that care, I think, because it's specialized care. It's not like you can just call somebody up down the street, hey, can you come over and watch the kid? It's, I need someone who's trained.
I mean, your world just gets a little bit smaller, right? It's so more limiting.
And I think things can't be as spontaneous as they used to be. And I think scheduling is a huge challenge. For any family of 5, scheduling is a challenge, but it's a particularly challenging thing for our family. There's a lot of shared Google calendars and at 5 different calendars to look at.
So stuff like that is a lot more challenging, but also I guess trying to manage how you think about things. If you want everyone to do a thing, for instance, I had a show the other week that would have been cool if you guys could have came, but since there was no specialized care to watch Felix, I couldn't go, which is unfortunate, but it works out.
Tell me, when you introduce our family, or when you're out with your friends or talking to other people, how do you talk about Felix?
I'll say, this is my little brother, Felix. He is a special needs child. Most people like hear that and they're like, oh, okay. And then they trail off. And then if any questions after that, I try to give the best responses that I can, but I don't know everything. So I try to
So you say that he's a kid with special needs.
Yeah.
Okay. So new language for us all. We're learning that now we say the disability community is taking back that term, right? So we want to say he's a kid with a disability. And so how else do you describe him? Because I think it's easy for us to use their disability as a way to describe them, but they are not their disability. So how else might you describe Felix?
It's usually what he's into at the time.
Yeah.
Because he's not at the age where like he has a set. I know that Max is really into producing, and I figure that's going to carry him for the rest of his life because that's what he's been really into for a long time now. So when you describe someone, you describe them based off of what their interests are. So it's usually whatever his interests are in at the moment. So like cell phone towers and bells for Felix.
I find myself having to change that language a lot of times too. Like instead of saying, hi, this is my son Felix, he uses a wheelchair. This is my son Felix, he's really into the X, Y, and Z.
Well, and that's a mature way to think. I'm impressed that you are able to go there, because I think a lot of kids would look at the external and, oh, he's in a wheelchair, or he looks different.
And I think it's
than
usually
us.
That's what most people are very good with. If you're introducing someone, I think that's where most people, because most people are very visual, that's like you introduce them with that and then you go into whatever their into at that time. So, hi, this is Felix. He's in a wheelchair, and he really loves cell phone towers.
And but talking about his disability, I think because it's obvious, because he's in a wheelchair, when you get questions, what sort of questions do you get about him, or how do you answer them?
What kind of disability does he have? Or has he always been this way? Just stuff like that.
Do you ever get what's wrong with him?
No, I've never
I get
done
that question all
Because
the
I remember
time.
on the playground, kids would come up to Makai and say, "What's wrong with your brother?"
No, I think that
not
they're
even
like-
your brother. What's wrong with him?
What's wrong with him?
I think that I was at an age where people were getting a little more mature, so how they would ask questions would be
More thoughtful.
different. It would be more thoughtful than if you were younger. So I've never heard that one, but I've heard, oh, what's going on with him? What does he have? And then I'll try to explain it in that way.
That's great.
It's awesome to hear that kids at that age are thoughtful of how they ask questions. Because, when kids Felix's age, it's so, what's wrong with him?
And when we were younger, too, it would be a totally different way that we would explain our experience and talk about other people, right? But I would think a normal reaction or feeling would be in being embarrassed or wanting to be really protective or things that come up. So that's great that you're able to stay in that mindset.
I'm very hopeful for this generation. I
very
think
hopeful.
they're learning
Well,
good
there's been
things.
some movement towards anti-bullying too, right? And so that falls into the category. And so it's like we're seeing that
Yeah.
by you sharing that. That's wonderful.
Can you think of any ways in which your life is better because Felix is around?
I think it's nice to have a little brother. Because it's a really cool experience to see someone that you've known from being a baby grow into a person and get older. And I'm really excited to see where he grows from here.
And he thinks you are the greatest thing that ever existed.
I can imagine.
And I think it's sad, both for Felix and the dog. Every time Max and Eli go to their mom's house, it's like,
sure.
where's our pack
That's really
going?
hard.
And even just lately, I think Felix has started getting really sad when Max and Eli go to their mom's house. Tearful sad. Or he's really starting to understand now that, they're going away for a week. Then they're going to come back.
But for the kids who are going away, for Makai going on spring break with his dad, without Julian, with you guys going off and doing something without your brother, that I think is also very healthy for the kids to have that experience where they're not having to compromise or accommodate and just be spontaneous and things like that.
Yeah.
So
You get to have that.
you get to both
Yeah.
worlds,
a break.
right?
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a nice sense of, well, I wouldn't say normalcy because this is the new normal now, but
normal.
it's like a little bit of a break. I think it's healthy to, and you guys go on vacations occasionally when you can. Very rarely, incredibly rarely.
I think we went on
But-
our first
very
last
rarely.
year in 6 years.
Yes.
But it is nice to have that reprieve for just a little while.
Yeah. I think it's tough. It's not a typical family experience. Tell me, is there any, so our audience is other parents raising kids with a disability. Is there any advice that you would give to other kids growing up with a sibling who has a disability?
I think realizing that this is your new normal is very healthy, especially in the beginning. So people go through their life with a sense of this is how things are, and human beings are just creatures of habit. So the more that habit continually builds and isn't broken down and changed, the more fond of that we grow to be. I think accepting that the new normal is what happened it's very healthy, and it helps you cultivate what can I do now that this is the new normal. With this happening, now what?
It's how similar, right?
Yes,
so
so
Eli was
similar.
not here during Makai's interview, but I think that theme of kind of acceptance and finding joy in maybe the little moments or in what is.
Yeah, such
That-
a mature and thoughtful
It
way.
is.
But I really do think that you and Makai are probably like this because of your experience.
Yeah.
I wonder if that same mindset is as prevalent with kids who haven't had to stretch themselves like you guys have? I don't know. That's just a good question.
It's
I just
a very
think that
mature. It's a mature mindset. I think Felix is very lucky to have you as a brother.
And I think we're lucky to be in this situation because it's allowed for a lot of, as unfortunate as it is, this is how the cards were dealt. This is how they are. And I think we learn how to move forward with that. And I think that's a very helpful mindset to have in life.
That's great.
Absolutely. Thank you for agreeing to do this.
Yeah.
I very much appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you to your brother Max for all the equipment here.
He is busy today, but you represented well for the family.
Thank you so much. It was a delight.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Cool.
So one resource I just want to share before we close is that there's an organization called Hope Kids, and there's a Minnesota chapter, and it's a national program, and it's an opportunity for siblings to do activities with their brother or sister who's disabled, such as tickets to twins games, or they do private pool parties, or they give you tickets to children's theater productions and all these great events. And you can sign up. It's called hopekids.org is the website, and I highly encourage families to get involved because it provides so many cool opportunities for families.
Is Hope Kids
that look just
local
like
to
yours.
Minnesota?
We have a chapter here, but it's like being
nationwide?
around families, because I think oftentimes you feel like the other, and so Hope Kids gives us an opportunity as families to be around other families that look like us, and that's not something that we always get to have. It's a neat organization, so check that out, and we'll put this on our show page. But I like the idea of sharing with you all little nuggets of information out there. Resources, yeah, definitely.
Tools, tips, tricks. So thanks so much, Makai and Eli, for sharing a little bit about yourselves today and your journey with your little brothers. If you have any questions or comments for us, please email us or connect with us on Facebook, Instagram. We'll be back next time with another discussion around living life successfully with rare medical complexity. Thanks for joining us and learning about the sibling experience through the siblings themselves.